Is Warcraft dying? Well, I've been hearing that WoW is dead ever since the game launched, so at this point, it's pretty easy to just write those claims off as profound hyperbole. Everything from the pet store to the LFG tool has caused players to sound the alarm and head for the hills like it's the end of the world of Warcraft. Whether you agree with these claims or not, I think it's safe to say that there are millions of fans who love this game, care about its direction, and want to be a part of it for a very long time. And Blizzard has earned that fan base through World of Warcraft. There could be no greater evidence to support this claim than the release of WoW's latest expansion, Warlords of Draenor, which saw a roughly 3 million jump in subscriber numbers. Considering the majority of these were returning players, it was clear that there was a significant number of people who had enough interest in this 10-year-old game to come back and see if it still had anything to offer. Now, because World of Warcraft has such a diverse audience, it's not exactly fair to say whether or not they are giving players what they want. No matter what they do, they are always going to give some people what they want, and they are never going to give other people what they want. So they can't make everybody happy. What we can look at are the latest reports, which show that in the first quarter of 2015, World of Warcraft lost slightly more subscribers than it gained in the previous quarter when Warlords of Draenor was released. This means that Warlords of Draenor has seen the most significant increase, followed by the most significant decrease in population in World of Warcraft's history. And I can already hear the White Knights of WoW rising up to defend the game by saying this is nothing more than the hype flock that comes with every expansion. People come and they go. The moment the lull comes, people leave. That's always to be expected, right? Wrong. I'd like to point out that there hasn't always been a decline after the release of an expansion. This trend did not begin until the release of Cataclysm, which to this point is the most notorious expansion Blizzard has released. And there's always the argument that this game is 10 years old and it's simply not feasible to think that it's going to last forever. And while this is very true, it's also fair to acknowledge the fact that Warlords of Draenor brought 3 million people back to the game, which proves that the game still has relevance. But what would cause the same amount of players to leave so quickly? Is WoW dead? Well, rather than wasting more time speculating, why don't we take a look at the state of the game? What did they get right? And what did they get wrong? And where does that leave you and me, the players? Warlords started out like every other expansion, with a lot of promises, a lot of hype, and a lot of excitement, with a little bit of controversy. Warlords played on our nostalgia and our desire to get back to what Warcraft was all about. We were done vacationing in Pandaland. We were ready to get back into the savage lands of Draenor, taking on orcs and demons and protecting Azeroth from the Dark Portal invasion. We were going back to where it all started, and they had us hook, line, and sinker. And nothing could have expressed this more than when Blizzard released that epic cinematic intro. Easily the best piece of cinematography Blizzard has ever released. And then they followed that up with this phenomenal miniseries called Lords of War, with episodes introducing us to some of the key figures in the expansion, supposedly. All of the cinematography was phenomenal. It was well produced and well executed, and it generated a lot of excitement for the universe and the expansion. But as we all know, good cinematography does not a good game make. I'm looking at you, Dead Island. You too, DC Universe Online. In spite of a disastrous launch, the introduction into Draenor was amazing. One of the most memorable and probably my favorite introductions into an expansion, even though the first experience was extremely crowded, to the point that it was impossible to click on quest objectives. It was pretty hysterical. And that pretty much sums up the entire questing experience of Draenor. It's really good, probably the best that Blizzard has done yet. The questing flowed really well. They told a great story and some really interesting side stories. Like one of my personal favorites was what happened at the Alliance Ghost Garrison with Admiral Taylor and all that. Good stuff. I love the way they would introduce you to some of your followers and allow you to fight alongside some key figures in the universe and see what happens to them. The story was really good, and rewarding us with those awesome cinematics at the end of some of the zones, those were phenomenal. Blizzard, please do more of that, because that stuff is awesome. And I felt like the bonus objectives, the treasures, and the rares that would pop up from time to time really helped keep things fresh. It was like when you were questing through a zone, you just didn't know what to expect. And I feel like that was a great addition to the game. The zones were beautiful, they were well put together, and I know a lot of people weren't happy about the whole no flying thing. That was one of the controversies. I feel like Blizzard did a great job at tailoring the zones around the fact that we would not be flying in this expansion. I feel like it did make the game a lot better. And once you hit max level, your next step was to get to where you could raid, which really wasn't too hard to do. And once you got into the raids, once they were all released, they were pretty good. The raids looked good. The encounters were fresh, they were challenging, they provided something new at each level, each of the 4 levels, because content. So I'd say most of us are having a pretty good time with the raids. They did a good job with those. And that's about all the nice things I have to say. Let's talk about what they got wrong. The number one criticism for this expansion is the feeling that there is nothing to do, which seems absurd in a game where clearly there are tons of things that you can do. You can do achievements, pet battles, the Brawlers Guild, challenge mode dungeons, farm for transmog, farm for mounts and pets, and if nothing else, you can always level an alt and try out a new class. Technically, there are tons of things that you can do in this game right now, but unfortunately, all the things that I've mentioned have one key element in common. They don't involve character progression, and a lot of them don't even involve the current content. So when people say that there's nothing to do, what they're actually saying is, there is nothing in the current content for which I paid $50 to participate in that I want to do. But the question is, why? Why do people feel this way? What is it that Blizzard tried to do that just isn't clicking for people? What does this expansion have to offer? The biggest feature in this expansion is obviously the garrison. And to Blizzard's credit, the garrison was a fresh idea. It provided a new way for us to customize our characters. And to be honest, I had a lot of fun with it at first, when I was building up my garrison and choosing which buildings I wanted to have, recruiting new followers and gathering up resources to level up my buildings and get acquainted with all the new perks. It was exciting at first. But what was once the concept of building my own fortress and becoming a general of the Horde quickly turned into a prison that feels more akin to checking Facebook. I mean, let's be honest, what is your Warcraft experience these days? You log in, you check your garrison missions, you post new missions, you check your garrison cache, get your resources, you check your work orders, you place new work orders. Menus, menus, menus. Seriously. Not to be cliche, but this is turning into World of Menucraft. Didn't I tell you, Blizzard? Didn't I tell you last time? We don't want more menus. There is nothing more disappointing and disheartening than losing gameplay to a menu option. Menu options suck. They're not gameplay. They're not adding anything to the game. They're just menus. Look at this gameplay footage right now and tell me why people are going to pay you $15 a month to do this. The truth is, 3 million people decided that they're not gonna. The other major problem is that garrisons isolate us from each other, and in an MMO, that should be the exact opposite of what you want to happen. And when you can do pretty much everything that you need to do from your garrison, there's not much incentive to leave. And Blizzard tried to encourage us to visit each other's garrisons through the invasions, but you can only do one garrison invasion per week, and it's not like it takes very long, and once you're done, you're going to leave. Same for the random vendors that show up. You find the right friend with the right vendor on the right day, and that's more of a hassle than anything, and once you do find it, you just pop in, get what you need, and leave. Usually without so much as a hello. There just isn't much incentive to go out into the world anymore. We just kind of spend all of our time in our garrisons. And I know what some people are going to say. In the past, all we did was sit in a city and queue up for dungeons anyways. That's true, but at least when I was queuing up for dungeons in Orgrimmar, I was around other people. That is, if I still queued up for dungeons. When 6.0 was released, I was having a lot of fun on my low-level characters because I discovered that Blizzard had made some pretty cool changes to dungeons. They added in these bonus objectives that you could do that would earn you some gold and a lot of XP for low-level characters. And they even changed some of the low-level dungeons. A lot of people don't know that Razorfen Downs, Razorfen Crawl, and Black Fathom Depths have been completely redone. And they did a great job with the Warlords dungeons, but unfortunately, there just isn't a lot of reason to run them. People were running dungeons at first to get some gear, but the problem is that there are so many other ways to get gear in this expansion that require less effort. Apexis crystals, garrison missions, garrison invasions, LFR, crafted items, and world bosses all provide better gear than heroics and require less effort. In fact, with a little bit of luck, you could gear up without ever running a heroic. It baffles me that you can enter LFR with such a low item level and basically get carried through the content for better drops than heroics, which require more effort, and you need to pass silver proving grounds to even be able to queue for them. And once you outgear them, there's really no reason to run them anymore. And the time it takes for me to queue up for a dungeon, I could easily make more gold than I'm going to earn from it. And a small cache of garrison resources? Give me a break. Most of us are capped out on those by now. Blizzard has said that making new dungeons isn't good for business because no one runs them, but you've given us no reason to run them. Do you remember in Wrath when dungeons were fun and you had a reason to run them? Back when you could wear tabards and gain rep while progressing your characters through dungeons, rather than going to one little location out in the world and killing mobs for hours on end for no other reason than to get rep. Back when you could earn badges and buy old tier to catch up, and earn badges for new tier while you're raiding. See, back in the day, dungeons and raids and reputation had a synergy going on. Everything that you did progressed your character. And in Cataclysm, dungeons changed, which by the way is when things started to go downhill for this game. And over time, Blizzard, you have systematically ruined the dungeon experience. Dungeons used to be fun. We had a reason to run them. You ruined that experience for most players by giving us no incentive. Blizzard, it's not fair to your design team who makes these awesome dungeons. These Warlord dungeons are good, the encounters are fun, they're enjoyable, and we'll run them, but you have to give us a reason to. I would give anything for the Wrath experience back. It was something to do. It's the same with dailies. You had a good idea with dailies back in Isle of Qualdanos, and then on in Wrath. Dailies were fun to do. But then you completely abused them and miss, and you gave us hundreds to do, and we got exhausted by them. And then you took the pendulum and went completely the opposite way and basically removed them from the game and gave us one Apexis daily, which is basically like a poor man's justice point. I say poor man's because once again the rewards really aren't worth it. All the really good gear is in the raids now, and not that it shouldn't be, but as a result that's about all there is to do in the game that's worth anything is raid. And for people who just log in to raid and that's all they want from the game, they're probably having a great time. They're probably loving this expansion because the raids are fantastic. But most people want more from the game than just raids, and they're not getting it. And PvPers really got the shaft this time around because all they got was Ashran, and it's been broken since launch. You gave them the Gladiator Sanctum, which is an awesome building idea, but unfortunately the only way they can progress in that is in Ashran. Or, if they're flagged out in Draenor, which leads to high-level characters ganking low-level characters on PvP servers. That's no good. I mean, why can't you get bones from Battlegrounds? Which, by the way, have turned into a wasteland of bots. It goes back to the whole concept of synergy when it comes to character progression. Blizzard is taking a more bottlenecked, controlled approach to how we progress our characters, and frankly, it's not as fun, leaving us feeling like there's just nothing to do. And we could talk about so much more. The way professions have been gutted, the fact that so much content has been pushed back and removed. Consider the fact that Tinan Jungle was supposed to be released at launch. You could argue that this game is actually coming out of beta at 6.2. We've been in early access all this time. So at the end of the day, it's not that everything in the expansion is bad. I mean, the new models are awesome. The music is fantastic. One of the best questing experiences ever. Great story. Love the heroes. Durotan is my boy, seriously. And to be fair, the garrisons would probably be fine if there were other things in the game that we could do, besides raid. And again, the raids are awesome. But in the words of an orc that we used to know,
times change.
We've seen good change and we've seen bad change in this game. The question comes down to this. At the end of the day, has all the primping, streamlining, and convenience come at the cost of the game's most valuable trait? Fun. Is it because WoW is an old MMO, or is it because WoW is becoming less of an MMO? Are players really getting bored of World of Warcraft, or are they just getting bored of what World of Warcraft has become? Maybe it's just that World of Warcraft is becoming less of a massively multiplayer game, and for that matter, less of an RPG. I think that when 3 million people return to a game, it speaks volumes about its relevance. But when just as many people leave a game in the same amount of time, it speaks volumes about the experience that they had when they came back. As for me, I'm still having fun, just not as much fun as I'd like. And sadly, it seems like there are a lot of people that are having even less fun than I am. But I think that there are millions of people out there who still love this game and don't want to leave it, and want to see where it goes, and want to see it change for the better. So if you agree, let Blizzard know by liking, sharing, and favoriting this video. And leave comments expressing your opinions about the game. And if you disagree because you like the direction of the game and you're enjoying the expansion, seriously, no hard feelings. I'm glad you're having a good time. But either way, I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and listen to one man's opinion. Have a wonderful day. This is TheKephas. Until next time.